Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. Today it's a pleasure to have with me Roberto Maranca. Roberto is a long-standing industry friend of mine, a very early podcast guest back in maybe 17, something like that, and very well known in the industry for his opinions about data leadership, about ethics, about all sorts of things. And I'm delighted to have Roberto back with me onto the podcast again a few years later to talk about the role of data leadership and how they can educate and coach and train and develop an organization to be better at the way they use data. So Roberto, welcome back along to the show.
Thank you, Jason.
So I know we know each other, but maybe not all the audience do, much to, I'm sure, your dismay. But why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So Roberto Maranca is now 4 years I've been with Schneider Electric, a big manufacturing company based out of France. And my role is the data excellence VP for them, and we're going to talk more about excellence in general. And before that, I was in Lloyds Banking Group as their group chief data officer. But the genesis of my thinking in data is deeply rooted in General Electric, where I actually made a transition from IT to data, and I said data is a business role, and I never looked back since. But as, let's say, by trade, I'm an aeronautical engineer, with, as you probably, the people we've spoken in the past with a bit of an attention to philosophy, Greek mythology, and all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Philosophy, mythology. Maybe we'll get to that.
Maybe we'll get to that.
Might be a bit over my head, but
I will try not to cite anything in Greek.
I won't keep up. So you've got this great metaphor for developing an organization's I suppose agility and capability, and ultimately success, around this idea of kind of personal training, and using that as an analogy to help us understand how do we really get good at data strategy, at delivering value. So I'd love to talk about that. Love to hear about that, and we can dig into what you mean, how it sort of comes across, and sort of how other people can use it.
So let's start from the fact that everyone wants to do data, right? Now, there is not even a question. It actually is almost a survival choice. I mean, either you're good at this or you're not going to have a working company.
Yeah, that's quite new.
So then that has created a bit of an anxiety with most of the leadership. So they behave like people that all of a sudden they jump onto a treadmill, or they are putting themselves to a very ambitious goal of running a marathon, but maybe they never trained in their life, right? So data, as we know, is a journey that has to be taken. Probably the hardest step is the first one, but then there are many, many other steps, and you take one after another. So the observation has been that, because I myself went through a bit of a journey in trying to be more physically active, and actually COVID helped that because it put a bit more rigor into that. The observation has been, maybe if we actually use the same psychological or the same approach and technique of a personal trainer, in which case is going to be now a data personal trainer, maybe we can get somewhere. And maybe we can relate more to people, because each one of us will know that if you will probably get your gym membership, you go there the first week, you break your spine because you've been using the wrong tool, the wrong machine, and then you don't go anymore. So and all your ambitions are then neglected and frustrated. So that's the kind of idea that generated this approach.
Well, just before we dig into that kind of idea of a personal trainer, then, because I love the analogy, I think it works really well.
It's a data personal trainer.
Data personal trainer, sorry, is. So you mentioned it's a marathon, and therefore not a sprint, but not, maybe that's quite a new concept for people potentially. So why is this thing a marathon? Why isn't there? We talk about agile, we talk about sprint. Why is this not something that can be done quickly, from sitting on the couch, to use the analogy, to getting fast across the line?
Because in simple terms, I think data presents you with the issue that it's something that has to be done organically and in an orchestrated manner from a larger footprint of the company. So that creates a necessity to a wider change, a true change, a lasting change, a sustainable change. So when you think about that, anything you've been done so far, any project, any program, any initiatives, think about how long it took to get there, but think more importantly, how much and how much effort took to stay there.
Yeah.
So here the point is that it's not only a marathon, but then it's something that people have been approaching as a project, but reality is a change of lifestyle for companies, and is a process of permanent augmentation. You never stop.
Yeah.
So that's a completely different mindset.
Yeah. So creating sustainable change takes time. Culture takes time to change. Therefore, the analogy of it being more like a marathon than quick over the line. I mean, that's just a concept that organizations need to wrap their head around quickly, because there's a lot of this thought that we, can invest in some tools or some technology or some people and get value, which of course you can, but lasting sustainable change is a little bit more deep rooted than that.
Yeah, again, if you go back to the metaphor, it's like someone that is now thinking, all right, I want to run a marathon, or I want to run 100 meters in less than 9 seconds. Both very valid ambitions, needing different type of regime, needing different type of muscles. And if the only thing you want to do is basically filling your house with gym machines, you're not going to achieve a lot, right? You need to change your nutrition. You need to change your resting. You need to be careful how you progress things, how you pace yourself. You actually, from a psychological point of view, you need to have your mindset really into what you're trying to do, and there is some stamina and some determination is to be achieved. So
just buying a Peloton doesn't get you fit. Is that what you're telling me?
I think that's the case, right? I don't know where Peloton is in terms of share value now, but I think it's the reality. We've seen it, because if you go into every company that's been around for more than 20, 30 years, you can open the virtual cupboards and you can find loads of this machine and gym technical stuff. There's lying there, there's been used once, and there's been actually not providing you the expected performance improvement, therefore has been deemed not to work. Reality is that we didn't look at this organically, like an operating model, right? So the operating model is made of processes, people, the architecture, and the data. So similarly, what you want to do here, you need to look at a data personal trainer. A personal trainer journey is including all of those things that are making you performing better. So that's where the analogy and that I married with my view of what is data excellence, which is trying to solve the cut this Gordian knot of companies wanting to do data, but then coming into this with maybe the right intention, but maybe the wrong approach, not creating lasting change, and most of all, not being able to measure what is the value. So the three pillars of cultural change the way we change, and then measuring the value, are the one I'm marrying with this data personal training, in which the cultural change is the ascertaining you as a personal trainer. You're having the first discussion, the first assessment with the data athlete that comes from the first day in the gym and says, do you really want to do this? Yes. Do you know that doing this means that? Yes. Do you know you don't have the muscle to do that? So that's you test your intention. And then we go into, okay, so if you want to do this is the regime, this is the exercise. I want to see you doing data, good for data, every single project that you are trying to execute. Because if the project or the agenda of change is a reflection of your intention as a company, you need to demonstrate that you want to really change stuff. And today, most of these issues about forgetfulness of data during a project is because a project yesterday was delivered in 100 days, forgetting about data. And so most of the time was having a problem. Now, if you want to do data right, the project will need to take 120 days. So the gap of exercise is where people are actually finding problem with.
Yes. And people feel like that's just elongating the outcome, but actually it's setting you up better for success down the line, and that sustainable change.
Yes, because what happens when you persist in you going to the gym and following the regime, that things are getting better, easier. So you learn to do things. You actually, it's not a chore anymore. Some of people that are getting too excited in the gym, maybe they're gonna get into the opposite effect. They're getting hooked on it.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that happening with data yet.
No, not yet. We're nearly there.
But then what is the key problem, the key moment in which you either go on the scales or you get your timer and you see performance improvement?
Yeah.
That creates the
feedback
reinforcement learning. So, I've done this now. I'll do more.
Yeah. Just take me back to the personal trainer, the data personal trainer themselves. Who is the personal trainer? So I can see the kind of the exercise and gym analogy, but are you thinking that there's an individual that is essentially the data personal trainer? Okay.
Is your data leader has to have, I believe, is the data leader. It can be multiple data leaders. You can have multiple personal trainers, by the way. But in effect, is the person you bring in and you say, look, I want to do this, but I don't have the skills to do this.
Yeah.
I don't understand the methodology. I don't know what, help me looking at me from outside. Help me understand what are the things I should do, what are the things I should not do. And in practical terms, the data leader, for example, one of the first actions you can put in place is simply, again, looking at the list of projects you want to do next year. Simple practical thing. And basically ranking those projects in, okay, you're fit for this, you're not fit for this. And you say, oh, this one you can do because I know you have the maturity there. I can see there's a bit of mass. Yeah, your performance is okay. Go ahead, no problem.
Yeah.
This one's, you probably need to improve data quality there or improve your understanding of what is there in terms of metadata, improve your data flows. Because until you don't do that, you're going to kill yourself trying to do those.
So it's that kind of assessment of readiness, of fitness to achieve some kind of fitness goal. So in the marathon analogy, it might
some kind of performance, right? Because you want to perform doing this type of projects.
And as any inputs that help you drive the outputs, and have you got them? Are they in place? Are they ready? Yeah. And is there I suppose just so you got the data leader who's like your kind of Uber sort of personal trainer, but I'm just sort of extending that analogy. And if you think like a tennis player, has got a nutritionist, they've got a strength and conditioning coach, they've got someone who helps them with their serve, someone who helps with their volley. They might have a team of people that support them in different ways.
Correct.
That allow them to perform best, and the dial might move on those things at different stages. So you might become nutritionally successful quicker than you are at improving your serve.
And that's actually a good point about, do you always need the same data leader for every single phase of your maturity? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe there are people that are starting you and maybe they will evolve with you, but maybe there are different type of leads that are going to come later.
Yeah, someone who's early to give you the confidence, let you know what the plan needs to look like, help you get onto that first
grounding.
rung.
So give you some grounding.
Yeah.
But maybe once you get professional and you are literally shaving a second on your performance, maybe there is a different type of a leadership you need there.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a finer way of looking at your performance and maybe a change in a move or a change in, like you see in probably athletes. Athletes are getting to a certain different level, a second, a third order of resolving problems in what they're doing. Because the becomes virtuosos in what they're doing.
Well, the tennis sort of extension is someone who gets you ready to be able to win Grand Slams, and someone who's coached someone who's won multiple Grand Slams. That's who you might need someone different at each stage.
It works.
It does work. I like it. It does work.
And also it works for people like you, because of course, I, as a data leader, I'm my data personal trainer, I might need people like you to come in and flank me where I can't, because there's not one data athlete in the moment, there are multiple of them. So there is a problem of, let's say, fronting all the different people and being there and coaching them and helping them. But also there is type of activity and type of exercise that I might not be able to deliver only with my team. I might need to have reinforcement. Yeah. So we've been talking about data therapy, for example, right?
Yeah. So there we go. Well, this is it.
Yeah, it is.
This is it. I mean, there's you can sort of see how that plays out. And if we go back to the kind of, you talk about the marathon, but to prepare for a marathon, you don't go and run a marathon. No. To prepare for a marathon, particularly if you're starting from nothing, you go, how do I run my first kilometer? How do I go from that to being able to run 5K? How do I stay at 5K and then be able to run it quicker and quicker and quicker? Okay. Then how do I progress towards a marathon? Is there the equivalent, do you think, here?
There is a resilience in your determination, the resilience in your resolve, right? And that's, I think, I never ran a marathon. I don't think I will run a marathon. Firstly, because my physique doesn't allow me to do that. But maybe
I don't know about that.
I don't know. But the second thing is, I always think that knowing a bit of Greek mythology and history, the marathon comes from the episode in which someone was actually running from marathon, where a battle just happened in which the Athenians were victorious, and he ran 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles, all the way to Athens.
Right.
And to deliver the news.
I knew there'd be a Greek angle here.
To deliver the news. But he delivered the news, Phidippides delivered the news and died immediately after. So I don't think it's the best preamble.
And now lots of people run marathons every year.
I'm not saying anything here, but aside from that, yes, there is as I was saying before, for probably in data, the first step is a pretty decisive one, like in a marathon. But then how do I basically survive or persist when inevitably there's going to be crisis?
Yeah.
You're going to start to crash, right? And that moment is a truth moment that most of us have been through, and it's tough because it's the moment in which someone will basically say, okay, what do you need to do? What can you show from that? What is the point of this? And that's, you can, as an athlete, you can put it back to the voices in your head when they say, that's enough, I'm too tired. I'm off it. Get me out of this, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find the internal resources that are going to allow you to push through that?
Yeah.
And that's in data. I've seen that at least 2 or 3 examples in my life that exactly what that.
But my point actually about the kind of like going from nothing to 1K, from 1K to 5K is that these sort of micro wins, if you like. So obviously the end, if your end result is to run the marathon, then you might not be satisfied until you run the marathon. And actually this suggests there's an end game, and we know there's not particularly necessarily an end sort of finish line with data, but those wins along the way, my ability to control my calories, my ability to run 1 kilometer, my ability to speed up my 5K time, they're all good things. They're all wins that I can celebrate, that the people around me should be happy for, because I'm progressing towards my goal.
Yeah, I think I always think there is a bit of a drawback or a potential backlash to that, which is sometimes people are focusing, we need to get some quick wins, right? But those quick wins sometimes are also short wins. So they don't last so much.
But they might make them, aren't they a step towards sustainable change if you keep going?
If I see them in a perspective, right? So if this is just one step in that direction.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we have a quick win, let's celebrate.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So I celebrate within the boundaries of the fact that
we're not there yet.
we can. One good thing is sometimes to turn back, right, and see how far you came.
Yeah.
But you know that there is more to go.
And so the linking that to that analogy then is you often will see a kind of a quick win, a minimum viable product, a tactical sort of fix for something. That's the 1 kilometer.
Yeah.
And then immediately the organization then wants to run the marathon. And
That's
go from the quick win to right now we need the full.
Yeah.
Now we need to go all the way. But actually, it might be lots more 1Ks before you can really sort of make sure you can do that consistently.
And I think in the quick win, you need to learn a couple of things, like you learn, right? So, what is my agility? What is my velocity? What are my limits? Right, because that's the quick win should tell you that, okay, I managed to do this, and actually I did a little bit more than what I did yesterday, because yesterday I was crashing at 1.5K. Now actually I can do comfortably 3K.
Yeah.
Right. So, and what happens though is having the personal trainer there is still which you still believe in, right? Gives you the ability to understand that, okay, tomorrow is going to be 5.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want your you want it. It's not going to be 15, and so you're right, because sometimes there is businesses are thinking that self-fulfilling prophecy is going to be, oh, we've done this good, we can do, let's go full scale.
Yeah.
And full scale, you don't know what full scale is. You don't know what happens there. You don't know how complex can it be, and you might burn a lot of people trying to do full scale when you're not ready for full scale yet.
Yeah. I like the that point about where you trip up, or where it's perceived that progress isn't as pacey as people would like. That you've got the personal trainer to sort of like wrap your arm around the organisation to say, hang on, this is okay. We've made some progress. We've got some steps to go. Your nutrition's better. Your people are better. You've got some good access to gyms. This is your equipment, your data platforms, all those good things. We've made some good progress, and these are all steps towards. So the role of the data leader in that kind of personal training mentality across the organization is to make sure they're clear on and communicate where we've been, the success we've had, and the journey, frank and honest and open communication that says, but we ain't there yet.
And that's where probably sometimes a third party can help, because there is, of course, especially if you've been not completely assimilated by the company, right? Sometimes in the tough moments, you might lose a little bit of grip and trust. So that's probably the time in which you want to bring someone from outside and say, well, you don't trust me. Actually, I have a friend is a world-renowned personal trainer. He's been training
the best.
He's been training Boris Becker, for heaven's sake. So if you have him coming and assessing you, and then you don't believe him, well, fine. But that's always a judgment call, and maybe like in boating, the time to think about reefing is the time in which you start to reef because there's too much wind, is the time in which you are actually asking yourself whether I should reef or not. So the time for that external help maybe is the time in which you're wondering whether you should have external help. So go for it.
Get that validation.
Get the validation.
Yeah. I'm interested in the kind of, so again, where we think about, so we've got our personal trainer, we're performing, we're doing races, we're running our marathons now. We've invested in the nutrition, we've got ourselves fit, we were now able to run a marathon, half marathon, whatever the end game was. During that race, you've got spectators. People are watching. You've got spectators who are watching and want to criticize. You've got spectators who are with you. You've got fans that sort of maybe support other athletes and those sorts of things. I kind of feel like there's a bit of analogy there with what happens in organizations.
For everything today.
There is, yeah. We can keep going with this. We're going to keep going with it. What part do spectators and champions, I suppose, because there's spectators and supporters, how do they play a part in helping to assure or indeed block or challenge progress?
I think there are two things we can think about more. If we look at spectators might have in some sports will be cheering or booing. So there is an expectation that you need to meet there. And I think that's part of your, has to be part of your mindset. So how much you want let's call an spectator can be your customer. Or can be your sponsors, your investors, or it can be your regulators. Right? I think there's a fair...
your board, your peers, your
peers. So there's a fair... wide variety of groups in which they might want to have a saying in what's the final performance should be. So I think there is an element of taking into account that, but there is an element of what I call more resilience of what you're trying to do. Because if you think about resilience is maintaining who I am while I'm actually changing. Right? Or while I'm actually under a shock or something that is trying to poke me in a certain direction. So if we stay in the metaphor, I think there is a part of what you will want to do is business-wise, it's a bit of a risk and opportunity analysis. So how much the cheering should be, I should lean into the cheering and basically go in where they're asking me to go, or how much I should listen to the booing and completely change my strategy because it looks like I'm not fulfilling the expectation in terms of performance.
Although there's the other angle, I guess, which is that it's your role as the personal trainer, as the athlete, to
be the counselor for that.
To shape the expectation, to reset or set or lower or higher the expectation so that you can sort of manage what the noise, if you like, is that's coming into the team. In
theory, you are the one closest to the ears of your athlete. So you should be the one having a filtering effect. And sometimes, the people are taking, I always think feedback is a gift, is always the case, right? So a spectator will give you feedback. And whether you like it or not is, if there is half of your crowd that is booing, you need to work on that. So I think sometimes the data personal trainer has to translate that moment, which might be a deep, recess of something is going wrong, into, again, a crisis. You translate in a crisis and say, okay, you know what? From tomorrow, we change the regime because you may be needing probably a different challenge. And maybe if we do that, we might appease or we might demonstrate something different. And maybe we test with the public and see if it works.
Yeah.
So that's still saying in the metaphor, but I guess if you come straight into this podcast halfway, you don't know what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, it does work though, doesn't it? Because there's so many. Because it's a perception thing, in some ways, and
it's always people.
And it's people. It's perception. Spectators are watching. Some are watching, hoping you're successful. Some are watching, hoping you succeed. Some are just watching and reacting. And there
are people that are also expecting you not to succeed.
Yeah. And maybe proactively trying to stop you. And
it's life.
That's life. It's politics in business. It's culture. But I think. As I say, that the personal trainer's jobs isn't obviously not all eyes on the CDO or all eyes on a certain team, but there's certainly a remit to shape the agenda, shape the expectations, deliver on the promise, so that you can then start to manage what that feedback is that's either asked.
But
or
also there is
provided.
also you can have internal championship, right? So there's a bit of a instant gamification that you can put in place there, because you have multiple athletes and you can create leagues and you can say, oh, you look at these guys, they're really performing well. Why don't you do a bit of what they've been doing? Because if they are able to do that, you should be able to do the same, or you should be even better. So internally, again, looking from the overall vantage point of a data personal trainer is for the entire company, you can also go into that more internal social engineering that will allow you to having a better performing overall company, because all the teams now are actually having the ambition to perform better.
And that's a mindset thing. How do you create champions? Because really you want feedback, but you don't want booze.
You don't.
So creating champions in the organization, I've seen being very important. People who are cheering you on, but behind your back, they are telling people how brilliant this thing is. That's what you want to create, and I think you can create.
So champion is then someone championing rather than the champion being the champion.
Yes, yes,
that's true.
That's very true. Two meanings of the word.
Because actually, you want to celebrate the champions as well.
Of course,
Because the other thing that sometimes we do in the quick wins, we kind of inflate the value of what we're trying to do. Instead, when you have someone that is a true poster child, someone has been breaking all the records. You want to find them and you want to create more of them. Those, right? So that's another type of champion.
I agree. Good point. I put them on a pedestal, show that they've been successful, show what good looks like. This is what we're aspiring to be. If you want to be good at this is what you need to look like. I think those internal stories, those case studies, the sort of like you start to get a pull for the need for data rather than this kind of stick
without going crazy, because that sometimes you get into basically everyone is a champion, everyone is and I agree you need to give this stimuli to everyone, but you need to really calibrate, because you don't want to inflate excellence, right? I'll go back to so excellence is excellence. It cannot be.
Yes, you don't want to dampen. It's like everyone. 7-year-olds football, everyone gets cheered, but not everyone's equal. But yes, of course.
No one would be signed up by Chelsea one of those, right?
Not everyone can be excellent. That's for sure.
Exactly.
But I think the ability to use champions, as in the people who are best at it, and the ability to get maybe cheerleaders is a better word, so that we don't confuse the word champion, but cheerleaders in the business, people that are doing that kind of cultural sort of day-to-day, day in, day out kind of positive reinforcement that this thing really works.
And at every level you need them, right? Because people sometimes is fixated in the champion only in the board. I think the most important champion probably are sitting in the mid management. Because those are the key one that are gonna whisper in one of the athletes' ears that don't listen to Roberto. That's all rubbish. It's gonna be gone in 6 months anyway, right? So those champions there in those planted in the right places are even more important than the ones in the board, I believe.
I think you need a mix personally, and actually depending on the culture of the business that changes. So sometimes you absolutely need top down champion support. If you don't have that, you ain't going anywhere. Sometimes that isn't actually worth stuff because everything happens in the middle. But I think bottom up is as powerful, and we see this in society now. Bottom up change is often what happens more than sort of top down policy and top down adjustments. But so let's talk about measurement and perform, like sport and personal training. It's all about measurement. It's all about data, actually tracking. It's about capturing. It's about knowing how well you are, how fast you're going, how heavy you can lift, how quick you can do, how many wins you've won. There's stats all over the place.
But also more important, what is the value chain between your performance and what you do?
How do they connect?
Yeah. So what is so if I do 7 more press ups, will I be able to lift 20 kilos more?
Yeah.
And in data, this is actually translating. If my data is 20% better, will I be able to serve my customer 20% better? And every business has got a different answer. But every personal trainer needs to find that, because otherwise you don't have the transfer function between your exercise and your performance, and you cannot demonstrate that.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult.
Well, it's really interesting actually, because it's not a one for one, is it? It's not do 20 press ups and be able to do.
No, it's not deterministic.
Yeah.
That's what
Yes, it's not deterministic. Yeah. So it's not do 20 press ups and then you're able to do something else. It's a collection. It's cumulative. All the things you do add up to being able to run the marathon. Back to that analogy, but equally, all of those data points are important. So you can't just look at your nutrition and whether you're keeping that well, because that only tells you one thing. You can't just look at how heavy you can lift. You can't just look at how fast you can run. It has to be the overall picture, and over a long period of time. And I think in data we can get quite sort of tied up with, so if I think about something like
it's the technical
marketing attribution or targeted marketing, something like that, where you go, we're trying to drive a campaign that drives customer acquisition, and we do a thing and we get new customers or we don't. It's like, well, those two things aren't directly related necessarily. You can't assume that they are, but we believe that they are because we've done a thing and it's produced a result. So I think that's, and the sport analogy I think is a good one, because you've got to train for 20 years, to become excellent.
Exactly. And people will always tell you, no, it's impossible to do attribution with data. So don't try to claim from my increased number of customer some money you can use to fund your data. That's usually what happens, right? But at the same time, what happens is as from a data point of view, we tend to be too technical so we believe that our job is to produce data on data. So I'll tell you, all the 7 dimensions of problems you're having in the quality of your data, and then you give it to them and you expect them to actually drive a better performance out of that, right? Instead, the better message as a personal trainer will be, hang on a second, today, with the mass that you got into your muscles, it looks like you can run another 2K, because I've seen that happen in the past. I think it's something that we want to measure. So that's more embedding your personal trainership of data into the performance improvement, rather than giving them some measurement that they have to decide what to do with it. And that's what I see that with data quality is all the time. We do technical data quality. We don't embed data quality into, okay, what I can do today, what decision I can make today with the data I have in my hands, and what value I can achieve. That's a complex thing to do. But if you don't listen to what your athletes has been saying about what they want to do and what they've been doing all along in the last 20 years and what is going to be their ambition, if you don't listen carefully, if you translate that into performance improvement, you will never get to that.
I guess the other thing about performance improvement is back to this kind of like 1K, 5K or a marathon is this kind of, I think actually in sport and as a personal trainer, you're always looking for quite small iterative improvements. Small iterative improvements in how much you can lift in a bench press, small iterative improvements of how fast you can run a 100 meters or 5K, whatever the measurement is. In data, we're always looking for these sort of huge transformational, well, not always, but there's often a sort of an expectation that we can make these huge transformational changes without the kind of little iterative improvements along the way.
But look at what happens in all the data productization approach we're having. That's a small iterative improvement.
100%.
So basically now, if you look at data muscles, I mean, we are now, the approach we are taking, agile methodology, is we go into data with the same view of a product development, i.e. small iterative improvement. So I learn, I put in place something, I check, I understand what is happened, and I iterate. So And that's actually perfectly working in terms of building your mass and building your stamina. So that's the way we're doing.
I agree. I mean, not everyone's on the kind of mindset of data product management or treating data as products in that way.
Well, if you listen, how many people have been implemented data mesh? The world should be full
of mesh.
Right? Full of mesh.
But no, not everyone is. But I think there's some value in that. There's some value in focusing on the outcome, value on iterative, agile improvements, like people expect to happen in sport. We don't expect to go from 20-second 100 meters to 10-second 100 meters, and then when we get to 10-second 100 meters, actually to get from 10 to 9 is huge,
exponentially harder.
Is exponentially harder, and much you're going very small margins, which is true in terms of maturity as well. With how good you are with data, actually you can get quite big gains early on because there's so much to change, and later you're just tweaking dials.
That's where you ask yourself whether should I change sport or should I change my discipline, or actually I accept
that I am where I am.
Accept this is my personal best. And I know that if I want to increase my personal best by decrease my personal best or increase the best, which 20% is going to cost me 2 years. Do I want to put these 2 years in or not? That's a very adult conversation you need to do with your business at a certain point. Say, we reach something that seems good enough for you. What do you want to do?
Not everyone wants constant improvement. We've been talking about sort of almost elite athletes, but actually just going from couch to 5K might be enough.
But if you want to, bear in mind, if you want to stay at 5K, you still have to.
You've got to keep
exercise.
training. Good point.
But if you don't want to, if you want to be, that's good for you. It actually keeps you in a certain form. You know that you're managing your toxins all right. You're cool. You sleep fine. Fine. Stay there. You want to become a champion? Well.
Well, that's sort of another link to the metaphor there, because obviously lots of people
metaphor bonanza.
I know it is
extravaganza.
So New Year's resolution: start going to the gym, get fit. So till March, April, May, maybe getting
fit.
That's
budgeting session, right?
There we
go. Resolution. I want a data officer tomorrow. I want to do everything in data next year. Right.
And then you stop, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not fit again, right? New Year's resolution comes around, I'm going to do it again. And that you can, that's a good point. Once you reach a certain level, you can go backwards.
And unfortunately, you can't put on eBay all the toys, the IT toys you bought in the meantime.
Your AWS platforms on eBay.
It's unfortunately you can't.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's a market. I'm sure there's a marketplace.
There's a secondary market for that kind of thing, for sure.
Yeah. You touched on there, almost reaching potential, or certainly reaching where you're comfortable with, even if it's not even your potential. You might have more room, but you might be happy with where you've got to. So switching. So we've been talking about marathons, touched on tennis, I suppose, but on the marathon thing, what if we start running marathons, we get really good at them? Don't want to do marathons anymore. I want to either step up and do, I don't know, triathlons instead.
Strategy change.
Strategy change. So instead of marathon, we want triathlon, or we want to move and become a swimmer, or the environment around us, you get injured and you can't do marathons anymore. The ability to change direction, change tack, change the training, change the personal trainer, which we mentioned earlier, becomes really important then, because how do you change track otherwise? And that I see in data strategies and business strategies is that we need to change tack.
Yeah, but that's not just a data problem, right?
No.
That's what is a business? When you think about strategic change, how deeply can you think about strategic change? Because I've observed in past, businesses are trying to do massive, tacks, but meaning changing direction, but not appreciating the gap of skills, the gap of processes, the gap of technology. Back to the operating model.
Change.
And so that's where it doesn't affect only data. And actually, you will have a problem in data, because maybe if you are approaching a new market, you have no understanding, no data around that new market. You don't have any process of collecting anything about that or any new product. So I think we're getting a wider thing in which, the data personal trainer can definitely explore with you angles, but has to be really a change of intention now. So it's literally going back to the first day you went into the gym and say, all right, I'm good at this now. I want to do that. Oh, guess what? My app and the two are not compatible anymore.
The tools I've got, the equipment I bought,
even the mass I built, the type of agility I got. Maybe being a very good swimmer is not the same as to be a very good runner unless you're a triathlete. But you see what I'm. So that's a deep change that has to be re-looked at and has to be. But if you go back to, it's not just new toys, but is a complete change of lifestyle. Then explore that, embrace that, be resilient in that. You're gonna make it.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I need to get myself a personal trainer. In fact, I've got a personal trainer who's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks.
So you can ask him questions whether the guy before was actually talking rubbish.
He's not a data personal trainer though. He's an actual personal trainer.
He's more than he knows. I mean, he's got data on his Fitbit,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. Well, okay. There's something just to wrap up then. So what's the Apple Watch? What's the Fitbit in the
come on.
in the
Each
data
one of
world?
us will have their own cockpit, tower, control tower, dashboard, board risk matrix. You have plenty of measurements, right? And but those measurements has to be good enough for you to understand where you're going.
Yeah.
And measurements of yesterday, I mean, heart rate yesterday, maybe is not the right measurement you need to want to look at for evolving your career in swimming or tennis, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely, you need that type of and we are at the center of that type of a sensor-driven revolution of our performances.
So we need that in business too.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, I love the analogy. I've got a feeling it's got legs, but it'll start to wander off into strange places.
Yes.
So I think we'll wrap up there. But I massively appreciate you coming back on the show. It's great to have you back. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to the analogy and the discussion around it.
Look forward to the commentary.
Yes, as do I. So thanks everyone, and we'll catch you again soon.